And Jeepers Creepers. One of the most reckless decisions comes when Derry and his sister Trish are driving down a desolate country road and encounter a terrifying truck driver who seems to be stalking them. After being chased and nearly run off the road, they later see this same driver standing beside a large drainage pipe, shoving what looks like a blood-stained, human-sized bundle into it. To make matters worse, the man turns and locks eyes with them, silently confirming that he knows they've seen too much. Any reasonable person in this situation would have kept driving until they found the nearest police station or phone to report what they had witnessed. But Derry's curiosity gets the better of him, and instead of seeking help, he insists on going back to investigate the pipe. Ignoring Trish's pleas to leave, he approaches the opening end. After being startled by rats and the sheer darkness inside, he ends up slipping and falling into the pipe itself. What he finds confirms their worst fears. The bundle wasn't just trash, but the body of a mutilated victim, and the pipe is filled with the creeper's collection of corpses, stitched together like a grotesque shrine. By returning to the scene and putting himself directly in harm's way, Derry all but seals his fate, because this act of reckless curiosity ensures the creeper marks him as its next target. It's the kind of decision that makes audiences want to shout at the screen, because it is clear that none of the horror to come would have unfolded if Derry had simply chosen survival and driven away. Instead, his choice to investigate turns a disturbing sight on the roadside into a nightmare they can escape. In Drag Me to Hell, Christine spends the entire film desperately trying to free herself from the curse placed on her by Mrs. Ganesh, a vengeful old woman who dooms her to be dragged to hell by a demon after 3 days. Every step of the way, Christine tries different methods to rid herself of the curse button that ties her to the demon, but her fate ultimately comes down to a single, devastating mistake. Near the end, she believes she has finally passed the curse onto someone else by sealing the button inside an envelope and getting rid of it. Relieved, she prepares to move on with her life, convinced that she has escaped the nightmare. But when she meets her boyfriend Clay at the train station, he casually pulls an envelope from his pocket and shows it to her, thinking it contains something harmless. To her horror, Christine realizes that she had mixed up the envelopes, accidentally giving away the wrong one, and that the curse button has remained with her all along. In that gut-wrenching moment, the weight of her mistake crashes down as she understands she never actually freed herself from the curse. Seconds later, as Clay watches helplessly, the ground opens beneath Christine. Fiery hands claw her down, screaming, and she is dragged into hell with no chance of escape. What makes this moment so haunting is how preventable it was. Had she taken a second to double-check the contents of the envelope, she would have broken the curse once and for all. Instead, a single careless oversight seals her fate forever, making it one of the most tragic and frustrating bad decisions in horror movie history. In I Am Legend, the tragic final moments of Robert Neville stand out as a heartbreaking example of a brilliant man making the wrong choice under unbearable pressure. After years of isolation in a deserted, plague-ravaged New York City, Robert discovers a potential cure for the virus that turned most of humanity into savage Darkseekers. When a horde of these creatures finally breaks into his fortified home, he manages to trap one of them in his lab and confirms that the antidote is working. With hope finally within reach, Robert puts the serum into a vial and gives it to Anna, the woman he recently saved, telling her to take it and protect it at all costs. He then shoves her and the boy she's with into a reinforced coal chute, ensuring their safety as the Darkseekers close in, instead of following them inside. However, Robert stays behind, pulls the pin on a grenade, and charges at the monsters, sacrificing himself in a blaze of destruction. On the surface, this decision feels noble and heroic, but it's also needlessly tragic because there was another option staring him in the face. The safe chamber had enough space for one more person, and Robert could have easily tossed the grenade into the oncoming swarm before diving in with Anna and the boy. He had finally found hope after years of despair. Yet in that moment, he chose martyrdom over survival. His decision cut short a life that might have rebuilt civilization and denied him the chance to see the cure change the world. The scene leaves audiences torn between admiring his sacrifice and mourning the wasted potential of a man who gave everything, but didn't he have to die? And I know what you did last summer. One of the most frustrating and heartbreaking deaths belongs to Helen Shivers, who spends much of the film being tormented by the relentless, hook-wielding killer. After a tense chase through dark alleys and abandoned spaces, Helen finally manages to break free, her survival almost within reach. She runs toward the sound of a marching band parading down the street, the glow of safety just a few feet away. The scene is built with unbearable suspense as she sprints closer and closer, her hair flying, her breath sharp with panic. But then, in a moment that defies logic and seals her fate, Helen makes the fatal decision to turn around and look behind her, instead of charging into the crowd. That 1 second of hesitation costs her everything. The killer seizes the opportunity, lunges out from the shadows, and drags her back before she can scream for help. The sound of the cheering parade drowns out her muffled cries, and the people just yards away continue celebrating, completely unaware that a murder is unfolding so close. It's a scene that leaves viewers squirming with frustration, because freedom was literally within Helen's grasp. Had she not turned to check her pursuer, she could have blended into the safety of the crowd, survived the night, and lived to expose the killer. Instead, her needless glance backward delivers her straight into his hands, transforming what should have been a triumphant escape into a cruel, gut-wrenching death. This moment is remembered not only as one of the most infuriating bad decisions in horror movies, but also as one of the most tragic, because it makes her loss feel so avoidable. And Satu, one of the most agonizingly avoidable deaths, happens to Addison when she stumbles upon a glass box dangling in the dim, grimy room of Jigsaw's twisted game. Inside the box sits the antidote that could save her life, glowing like a beacon of hope. And at first glance it seems almost within reach. The box has two inviting holes at the bottom, each lined with hidden razor blades angled inward. A cruel trap waiting for the desperate. Without stopping to study the setup, Addison rashly pushes her hands into both openings at once, immediately trapping herself as the blades dig into her flesh. The camera lingers on her panicked struggle, blood pouring down her arms as she tries in vain to pull herself free, her screams echoing through the decrepit house. What makes this death so haunting isn't just the gore, but the knowledge that it never had to happen. Had Addison simply taken a moment to walk around the other side of the box, she would have noticed a lock, with a key already sticking out of it, an obvious way to open the trap safely and claim the antidote without harm. Instead, her panic overrides reason, and she chooses the path of instant gratification, reaching in blindly for survival only to guarantee her own demise. It's a devastating reminder of how fear and desperation can cloud judgment, turning a possible escape into a gruesome death. Viewers can't help but shake their heads at the sheer simplicity of the solution she overlooked. And that is what makes her end so painful to watch. Addison wasn't doomed by the trap itself, but by her own rash decision to act without thinking. In Jaws, the most disastrous decision comes not from a victim, but from Mayor Larry Vaughn, whose stubborn refusal to close the beaches despite clear warnings leads to needless bloodshed. After the grisly discovery of a young woman's remains, Police Chief Brody urges the mayor and town officials to shut down the shoreline until the danger can be assessed. But Vaughn, consumed by the fear of losing tourist revenue during Amity Island's peak summer season, dismisses the threat and insists that the beaches remain open. His greed and arrogance blind him to the reality that a massive great white shark is prowling just offshore, waiting for its next meal. When families and children flock to the water on a sunny afternoon, the unthinkable happens. The shark strikes again in broad daylight, thrashing through the waves as horrified onlookers scream from the sand. Chaos erupts as people scramble from the water, but the damage has already been done. Another innocent life lost because of the mayor's short-sightedness. This moment is maddening because the tragedy was entirely preventable closing the beach, even for a few days, could have spared lives while allowing experts to hunt the shark. Instead, Vaughn gambled with human lives for the sake of summer profits, and the town pays a terrible price. His decision epitomizes how misplaced priorities and denial can turn a manageable threat into a catastrophe. It isn't the shark alone that terrifies audiences in this scene, but the realization that those in charge put money above safety, a mistake that echoes far beyond the screen. Vaughn's fateful choice is remembered as one of the most reckless in horror thriller history, proving that sometimes the real monster isn't in the water, but sitting in the mayor's chair. In Scream, one of the most memorable and frustrating deaths belongs to Tatum Riley, whose fate is sealed not by the killer's cleverness but by her own disastrous choice. In a moment of panic, cornered in the garage by Ghostface, she actually manages to put up a surprisingly strong fight, hurling bottles and even knocking the masked killer to the ground more than once. For a brief moment it looks like she might escape, but instead of finishing him off with the many weapons scattered around the garage or simply bolting out the side door, she makes the baffling decision to crawl through the pet door and the electric garage door. From the start, it's clear the opening is far too small for her to fit through, yet she squeezes her shoulders in desperation, leaving herself stuck and vulnerable. Ghostface, recovering quickly, takes full advantage of her mistake and activates the door, slowly lifting her off the ground as she thrashes helplessly. The moment is agonizing because Tatum had so many opportunities to survive. She had the killer down, she had objects at hand to use as weapons, and she had the actual exit just steps away. Instead, her split-second lapse in judgment reduces her to a trapped victim, and the audience can only watch in dread as she is crushed in a death that feels both gruesome and unnecessary. What makes the scene so haunting is how human her error is. Fear, panic, and desperation combine to cloud her thinking, transforming an almost certain escape into a horrifying end. It is one of the most infamous examples in horror of how a single bad decision can turn the tide, reminding viewers that in a fight for survival, logic must win over fear where the consequences can be fatal.